Ferney Muñoz, Wireless Land Professionals. One of the classes I had, we were training some of these high school kids to help us with surveys and stuff. And we were in a warehouse, Channel 1 and 36, doing an AP on a stick. And he asked me, Ferney, how fast should I walk? And I look him right in the eye and say, listen, Flash, those waves move at the speed of light, roughly about 300,000 kilometers. Well, let's talk millions, 300 million meters per second. He said, this is America, we don't do meters in here. I said, okay, 328 million yards. Who cares? It's a lot. But then it got me concerned because many people ask all the time, how fast should I walk? In one of the classes, one of the guys asked me the same question. He said, well, the guy was here before, I took over the Wi-Fi and he told me that I had to one step click, one step click, one step click. And I was pretty much like, no, exactly that's what he told me to do. That's what I've been doing for a while. He didn't know any better or he was just mean, but now it got me thinking, is there really a concern and see how fast is too fast when you're walking or doing surveys? So I live in Utah and we went to the salt flats. Of course, speed, let's test speed over there. And I said, how hard can that be? You just put some APs up and then that's what I did, just open space. And to start with the conclusion, this is extremely complicated. Who cares? Let me tell you a story. On a really warm day in Salt Lake City, we decided to go to the salt flats and brought all the equipment, the gear, some APs, some antennas, drag along Marco, with guys, Marco's still here. They did some testing for CBRS, we did our Wi-Fi, and then we got my Sidekick 2. Who's got a Sidekick 2? Buddy? Sidekick 1, okay, we work as well. Got my son, he's my right-hand man. He helped me set up with all the other guys. We lined up some cones. There are no reference points out there. No trees, no corners, no buildings. Perfect, but just trying to find a way. The autopilot doesn't work because when it's white, either in this scenario, or when it's a snowy day, it's not gonna work. So I had to build a grid with cones. So I said a cone every 25 meters. That's a lot of cones. I had to just buy cones and cones. And then say, well, let's start walking. I didn't do the whole thing because it was just way too much. This is a grid that is 200 meters by 200 meters. And then I just walked. And then I started walking one direction, going cone to cone to cone to find my reference points. I did about 2.4 kilometers in 29 minutes. The buffers, let's see if this thing works. Oh, great, it works. Ekahau, the Sidekick 2 has 4 NICs, and as I walked, it just placed one of those buffers for each one of the NICs every 2 meters. So that's the pattern. But then I say, okay, let's try this Segway. Segway goes, about 10 miles an hour. It's not much faster than walking. Now my buffers are about 4 meters apart. Okay. The heat maps didn't quite match. And I say, okay, let's try with the car. Because speed doesn't matter. They travel at the speed of light. What happened with the car going about 20 miles an hour, it looked even more different. So I started thinking, what am I doing wrong? Which I'm never wrong. Well, except when I am, and that's most of the time. And I'm a certified Ekahau instructor, Like, what am I doing wrong? So I said, well, okay, let's scale down. Let's go to a football field. Smaller one, everybody can relate to it. I didn't have to put cones down because there are markers, 5. And I said, well, this is very easy. This is kind of like an AP on a stick. You just set the access point, it's open space, and let's walk it. Took my son, set up shop over there, and just did the first 30 yards. Walking back and forth, the APs are there, I'm walking, go to the 5-yard line, come back, and walk. But that didn't quite look what I was expecting. I did a stop and go. Didn't quite match what I was expecting. So I realized that, well, I only did 30 yards. Let's do a whole thing on the Segway. A lot of going back and forth. I walked in that direction, and it still didn't quite match. So I said, what if I were to get, because evidently, as I was walking and my psychic was facing the access point, I saw certain things. When I was walking back and my body was blocking the line of sight from the psychic to the access point, I saw different things. So I said, what if I get my body? And I'm like a 1 dB type of guy. Some of you, yeah, like 3 dB type of guys. I said, what if I get my body out of the equation? What if I wear the psychic on my head? Now, hey, by no means I'm saying wear the psychic on your head. I was just testing, okay? So I did the whole thing. Still quite didn't match what I was expecting. So I say, what if, because now the psychic is on top, flat, and the reality is we don't survey in cars. Yeah, some use segways, but not all the time. We most of the time walk. But I say, okay, evidently speed doesn't matter. At this point, I'm more concerned like, okay, why is it looking so different every time? So I say, what if I then wear the psychic upwards as you usually carry it, but without me in the equation? Put it up on top. And went side to side and still didn't look as what I was expecting. So what if I, instead of going east-west, I go north-south with the psychic overhead? It looks different. Same place, same access point, no obstacles, no nothing. They all look different. That's 2.4, that's 5 gig. What if you are surveying at a site where your client has the antennas up here? What could I do being down here walking with a survey? So at this mine, I couldn't walk. They say, you're going to be a Colombian pancake if you're walking out there around these trucks. So I couldn't get in one of these trucks. They say, we don't have permissions to do it right now. You cannot get on the truck, because when you're surveying, what are you surveying for? Well, we want to see what's in the air. And you use the psychic as a reference. And then you build an offset and you compare that with what the clients would see. Well, my clients are all the way up there. So I had to figure out how to do a survey in a mine. I didn't have a Segway there. So I asked the guys, can I get one of your donkeys? And he said, no, you cannot ride a horse or a donkey in the mine. So I attached my psychic to the top of a truck. Same way as I did at the Salt Flats, just secure it up there. And then survey. Well, I think Carl's been quoted a few times. I'm going to quote him again. Because yes, I'm on with the psychic on top of a truck. But still, my client has the antennas up there. And he said, you know, with motion there is change in RF. What do you think is going to happen when this baby moves across in front other devices, and what's going to happen to the RF? If moving a TV and a door is going to change the environment, yes, one of these monster trucks is definitely going to change the environment. And what if you have a robot or a device whose antennas are down here and they're always going to be close to the ground? So when you're surveying, you are hearing what's in the air with your psychic. How fast? Who cares? And it doesn't seem to matter, because whatever seems to be more important is the position of the psychic, whatever device you're using, and how you're walking. If you're walking towards the AP, if you're walking away from the AP, if you are walking and you have line of sight between your device and the access point, or if you're walking on the other direction and you're blocking it. So test. You're going to have to test your environment, see what's out there, because evidently it matters. Even on free space, I was expecting like perfectly green and everywhere, and it wasn't quite like that. Thank you very much.